What's going on, guys? Today I'm predicting the top 20 rated players in NHL 26. Starting off at number 1, no surprises here, we have Connor McDavid. I think, again, he'll probably be a 97 overall. Now, in terms of his attributes, I'm really hoping his speed's going to be maxed out, 99 speed, 99 acceleration. They said that they're using NHL Edge to actually influence the attributes in-game, which is something that me, Chugi, Vasi have been doing for quite some time in our custom roster. I know sometimes, a guy will have a higher top speed reach than McDavid, but on a nightly basis, I don't think there's anyone faster than McDavid. You just see him skating up and down the ice. He seems to have the most high-end speed bursts of anyone in the league, so I'm hoping that they'll, have that reflected in-game here and actually just, max out his speed if they're not willing to, max out his rating there at a 99. And I should mention too, guys, in regards to McDavid, I didn't bother changing the X factors or anything like that, as obviously we have new X factors in NHL 26, and we already know what 3 X factors McDavid's getting. If you guys missed my last video, they actually changed it so players can only have 3 X factors max, but they can have 3 elite X factors, which is essentially like having 3 zone abilities, so should be interesting to see how that affects gameplay in 26. And next up here, guys, number 2, we got his teammate and best buddy, Leon Draisaitl. I have him at 96 overall. Now, there are some other guys tied at this rating, but just for simplicity, we'll have him at number 2. And now, speaking of NHL Edge, even though Leon Draisaitl is a 96 overall, I'm really hoping that they actually have his speed not being the greatest, because real life, he's kind of slow out there. I've got him at 86 speed in Excel, but he's got, still solid agility. Again, if they're actually using, like, the real life statistics, I'm hoping, these superstars will have their high overall, and, like, there's certain stats, whether it be skating, shooting, passing, are really high, whereas the stuff that they're not that great at is actually lowered true to real life, where I feel like sometimes in previous games, they wouldn't let certain stats get too low. I'm hoping this year that has changed, but obviously, guys, Draisaitl, coming off Maurice Richard Trophy, well deserving, I think, of the 96. Now, next year, guys, we're moving on to the Colorado Avalanche. Nathan MacKinnon here at number 3, also 96 overall. Obviously, one of the best players in the league. Could definitely argue for him at number 2. Obviously, I have him tied with Draisaitl, both being 96. Another guy, should have some really good skating stats. I think he's got, a great wrist shot as well. Really good playmaking ability. So I think, no one's really going to argue with this one. And actually, guys, speaking of NHL Edge, one thing I forgot to mention about McKinnon is the fact that he needs to have 99 acceleration. Just look at how many more 20+ mile/per-hour skating bursts he has than all the other fastest players in the league. It just shows every shift he's getting up to that top gear. Even guys like Braden Point, McDavid, etc. He's done it 100+ more times. So I mentioned McDavid have 99 speed. McKinnon has to have 99 excel if they actually are accurately using NHL Edge. And the next year at number 4, we have a teammate of his in Cale Makar, also 96 overall. Kind of crazy to me. You could argue 4 of the best players in the league all come from only 2 teams. So, both those teams definitely lucked out. Makar here, I think, is the best defenseman in the league. I got him at 96 overall. Obviously, does everything great. A really good skater. He's got that good shot from the point. Great passing play. Amazing defensively. Can throw the body around when he needs to. Just really good vision. Obviously, just kind of overall, just a great player. I know he also, won the hardest shot competition a couple All-Star games ago. I'm curious to see what his slap shot power will end up with NHL Edge, but definitely, in my opinion, worthy of that 96. And on next year, guys, number 5, Nikita Kucherov, also 96 overall. I feel like he's a guy that's honestly often overlooked. I wouldn't call him underrated, but when people compare him to McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl, sometimes, they just kind of forget about Kucherov, who, in my opinion, is the #1 winger in the NHL. I think over the last 2 seasons, he actually leads the NHL in points. Honestly, just such a good player. Amazing playmaking. I think you could probably have those, maxed out to 99, passing, puck control, deacon, etc. Good shot, too. Can score for sure. Defensively, physically, not the greatest, but definitely still worthy of that 96 overall rating. And now, guys, number 6, the final 96 overall player, I actually have Quinn Hughes. So both him and Makar, I have at 96. I think Makar probably has the slightest of edge, but in my opinion, it's not enough to justify a difference in overall rating. So Quinn Hughes, like I said, the final 96 overall player. Number 2 defenseman in the league. Again, Makar is 1A. Quinn Hughes is 1B, in my opinion. Just like Makar, great playmaker. I'd say Quinn Hughes, a bit of a better skater, whereas Makar, a bit better physically. Both very sound defensively. I think Makar probably also has a bit of a better shot from the range than Quinn Hughes does, but again, Quinn Hughes has the skating. You could maybe even argue a bit of a better playmaker as well. So, both those two, I think, are honestly starting to have a conversation for generational defensemen. Crazy that they're both in the league at the same time. So, like I said, Quinn Hughes definitely, in that 96 conversation. And on number 7 here, guys, I've got Auston Matthews, 95 overall. I'm sure Leafs fans think, he's just as good as Draisaitl, McKinnon, Kucherov, etc., but I mean, EA is definitely a lot more recency biased with their ratings than even I am. And because Matthews last season wasn't the greatest, I don't see him being higher than 95. Now, he should still have an amazing shot. One thing to actually look out for, if they're actually using, realistic statistics this year, is his shot blocking should be at least a 90. I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, but he actually led the entire NHL in shot blocks or forwards. So I think EA had it at 82 when I checked. I bumped it up to a 90. That's like one thing to check to see if they're actually, doing their due diligence or not this year. They're telling us they are, so, fingers crossed that's going to be the case. But I still think even with the down year, Matthews definitely deserves to be at least a 95 overall. And now guys, at number 8 here, I actually have Connor Hellebuyck, highest rated goalie for me. I don't think we've actually had a goalie rated this high in quite some time. I know like Vasilevsky's been 94 a couple years. I think Shesterkin might have been 94 at one point. They boosted Hellebuyck to a 94 during last season, but I can't remember the last time we had a goalie that was 95 overall. Back-to-back Vezina trophies for this guy. Definitely deserving of this rating. I think whether using him in play now or franchise mode, he should be an absolute stud for you and play noticeably better than any other goalie in the game. And now next year, guys, number 9, I got David Pastrnak, also coming at 95 overall. I mentioned how Kucherov is my number 1 winger in the league. For me, Pasternak's probably number 2. I think he's just such a good sniper. I mean, you look at his goal totals, he's like top 3, I think, in the league last couple seasons. Even points, I want to say he's top 5 or right near the top 5 mark. And the fact Boston had a down year last year, but he was still producing, I think just shows how good of a player he really is. And now next up here, guys, at number 10, this is kind of a legacy rating, but I got Sid the Kid. Crosby comes in at 95 overall. I just think how well he continues to play at his age is so impressive, especially when you look at the talent around him. Like, that Penguins team is not very good. He's the best player on that team by far, and he's still producing over a point per game every single season, like he's done, since the start of his career. Just like McDavid too, we've actually seen the 3 X factors he'll have in NHL 26. We don't know his rating, but like I said, I think looking at just how well he did this year on a bad team, how well he did at 4 Nations where he, had good talent around him, I think EA is going to lean 95. I could be wrong, but honestly, if it was my decision, I'd probably make, Crosby a 95 overall. I do think he's still deserving. And now next year, guys, number 11, the last 95 overall in the game, I got Alexander Barkov, obviously the best defensive forward in the league, 2-time Stanley Cup champion as the captain, leading the Florida Panthers all the way there. I think that definitely counts for something. Honestly, defensive stats could probably even boost up there a little bit. You can see not the fastest guy either, but a really good playmaker, good shot. I think all of like the senses, defensive, are going to be kind of sky high. Physical also isn't too bad. Face-offs wise, I think he's pretty solid in face-off circle too. So Alexander Barkov, like I said, the best defensive forward, kind of like, the next coming up, Patrice Bergeron. I think 95 is definitely well deserving. I probably wouldn't have him higher than that. I could listen to 94, but definitely no lower. And now speaking of 94 overalls, guys, next up here at number 12, I've got Jack Eichel. I think last year was probably the best year of his career. Obviously, had a huge playoff for Vegas Golden Knights a couple years ago when they won it. I think when you look at him, just such a good player, really good skater, great playmaker, has a great shot. I think, physically probably could be a little bit better, same with defensively. But in terms of a number 1 center, you really can't ask for too much more. So I think Jack Eichel, 94, tier below the guys we just listed, makes a ton of sense. And just like Edmonton and Colorado, Vegas here has a new 1-2 punch. Mitch Marner, I also have being a 94 overall. I think he's a top 5 winger in the league. I'm sure Leafs fans are going to argue that, but I do think it's a bit of like, the fox in the grapes. They don't have him anymore, so they want to act like he wasn't as good as he was. I think, he's one of the best playmakers in the league. Obviously, come playoff time, he didn't perform quite as well in Game 6 and 7, because overall in the playoffs, he actually didn't have that bad of numbers. It was just come elimination games, he didn't really perform, but regular season, he's been one of the top 10, I think, point producers in the league over the past few seasons. Again, such a good playmaker, also solid defensively, plays the PK. I think Mitch Marner is going to thrive in Vegas. Obviously, time will tell. And now next year, guys, number 14, another top 5 winger in the league. I got Kirill Kaprizov. He's actually on a contract year. I'm really curious to see how much he's going to get paid. Apparently, Minnesota is willing to, back up the dump truck full of money for him. So I think it's going to be a big number. Obviously, Kaprizov, great offensive player, really good playmaking ability, but also has a great shot. One of the best, I think, on his edges in the NHL. So strong. Kind of reminds me of Crosby. Probably could be a bit better, defensively, physically, similar to some of the other guys we talked about. But in terms of an offensive top-line winger, it's tough to find a better guy in the league than Kaprizov. So again, I think he's definitely worthy of that 94. And now number 15 here, guys, I got Mikko Rantanen, also 94 overall. It kind of works out well since, him and Marner were almost flipped for each other, essentially. I think, he's another guy in that conversation for sure. Top 5 winger in the league. Definitely a top 10 forward. I think over like the last 3 seasons, he is, I think, 4th or 5th in scoring. I know he kind of slowed down a bit on Carolina. Even Dallas wasn't quite as Avalanche numbers. But we saw in the playoffs when Rantanen was playing against his old team in the Avs, just how much he can take over a game if he wants to. So obviously for him, sniper, you could also call him a power forward. He's got a great shot, but he's got, the big body there. He can use it out front of the net. Good hands in tight. I think defensively isn't that terrible either. So Rantanen, for me, obviously a different kind of game than, say, like a Mitch Marner, but in my opinion, similar tier there for a forward, and obviously, worthy of 94 overall. And what's kind of crazy, guys, I'm looking at Rantanen here. Like, when's the last time in a single NHL season we saw 2 guys that were superstar level, him and Marner, both 94 overalls, moving to different teams? Like, pretty crazy season looking back. And now number 16 here, guys, we got our Artemi Panarin, another, top winger in the league. Definitely one of the best playmakers. I will say he's a guy I wouldn't be too surprised if he actually gets downgraded during the season. Have him starting at 94, but obviously he's 32 now. The Rangers team, I'm not really sure what to expect from them this season, but he's definitely earned that 94 to start the year. I think he's another guy that's like top 10, or at least close in points over the last couple of seasons. He does everything you want out of a first-line winger, so I don't think anyone would argue with this. And now number 17 here, guys, rounding out the 94s, I got the cover boy in Matthew Tkachuk. I will say, personally, if I was doing the ratings, I'd probably give him a 93, but I think because he is on the cover, he's going to get at least a +1 boost, become a 94. I looked at the Hughes last year. I think at least Luke Hughes, for instance, definitely started a bit higher than he should have because he was on the cover. Even Jack Hughes, I think, maybe a bit high. Quinn, I think the rating probably was fine. So I got Tkachuk coming at 94. Like I said, he'd probably be a 93 if he wasn't on the cover. Speaking of the NHL edge, he's a guy definitely look out for his skating ability. In real life, he's one of the slowest players in the league. I think, his injuries aren't helping him, but still, the data is there. He's a slow skater. If his skating is like anything higher than an 85, I feel like they bumped it, even though the edge data, had him being lower. So that'll be an interesting one. Obviously, though, he has one of the most complete games in the league, especially, for a winger. He can score, he can make plays, he can throw the body, he can play defense. Other than the skating ability, Tkachuk does everything you want. So even at 94 with the cover boost, it's not too crazy. Like I said, I have him coming at 93, which is actually where I have his teammate, Sam Reinhart. Moving on to the 93s. He's number 18 here. I think last year he just kind of showed not only can he score, but he can play defense. Was a Selke nominee. I believe Reinhart was actually second in Selke voting this year behind Barkov, so he should hopefully have really good defensive stats in 26. I got him at 92 D awareness and stick check. Speaking of which, too, guys, I have his player type there as a two-way forward. I noticed EA had him as a playmaker, which made absolutely no sense to me. Like, either have him as a two-way forward, he just got second in Selke voting, or have him as a sniper. He put up 57 goals 2 years ago. Having him as a playmaker with 37 assists, that one was a head scratcher. He does have decent playmaking ability, but obviously his shooting stats should be a lot higher. And speaking of him being a goal scorer, guys, I noticed EA had his shoot pass bias at 10 out of 15, which makes no sense to me. This is like a playmaker's bias, where obviously it's much more heavy in terms of the pass. Think like a Robert Thomas. This should be at 5 out of 15. That's the kind of stuff that annoys me too, because obviously in franchise mode now, if it was left at 10 out of 15, he'd be getting a lot more assists than goals, which isn't true to real life. So I really hope, not only with NHL Edge, but also just, ratings in general, EA can lock it down and fix a lot of the, inaccuracies that we see in previous games. And the next year, guys, number 19, I've actually got William Nylander coming in at 93 overall, so just a smidgen there behind Marner, probably because I think Marner's a bit better defensively, also better skater. Marner's also got the playmaking. Nylander, for sure, though, has the shot. Also should, give him credit where it's due. He's also a very good playmaker. Also has, decent skating there. I do think he's just slightly lower. Again, I'm sure Leafs fans are now going to say Nylander's for sure the better player, but we'll see about that. When I think, him breaking into the top 20 is super, super impressive. He's a guy, again, you look at the last couple seasons, I think he is top 15 or so in points. So in terms of, a winger, I think it's tough to argue he doesn't deserve this 93 rating. And finishing off this list, guys, number 20, I got Andrei Vasilevskiy coming in at 93 overall. Has to show the goalies a bit more love. I think last year he was the clear second best goalie in the league. Even over the last, 2 or 3 years, he's definitely in the conversation for top 5. You look at his playoff numbers too. I don't think there's a better goalie come playoff time than Vasilevskiy, whereas Connor Hellebuyck's kind of the opposite. There's no better goalie come regular season. Come playoff time, he's not that great. And that's why in our roster, I give Vasilevskiy 99 points. I feel like in franchise mode, he needs to come through in the playoffs like he usually does in real life. But that's going to do it, guys, for my top 20 list. Let me know in the comment section below who I missed. I'm sure people are going to say, Jack Hughes, Braden Point. And those are guys that were close. I probably have them 92, maybe 93. But at the end of the day, I had to pick 20 guys, and those were some of the fringe players. Let me know if there's anyone else I'm forgetting about. I'm sure the Montreal fans are going to tell me Suzuki should have been on this list. But regardless, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you did enjoy this one, leave that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.